Howdy folks, and welcome to another technical presentation from Salient Process. In this edition we're going to talk about Salient Process's Quick Process Builder application. This is going to be pretty much a technical demonstration, so most of what I'm going to show you is going to be a demonstration with me talking over it. However, let me take you through some simple slides to give you an impression or an understanding of what the product is all about. So at the highest level, when we're building BPM processes, we typically start off with a process flowchart. So a BPMN diagram or something similar like this. We've got a series of activities with decisions and paths that can be followed. And this is typically what a business person thinks about when they're thinking about a BPM process. Now, after we've drawn out this process, we then move on to the next step, which is to provide some implementation for the process steps. So some of these steps may be screen design, some of them may be decisions, and some of them may be technical integrations, where we're integrating with some back-end system. So we go from our nice, clean, high-level model of what the process looks like to a further refinement of that, where we're implementing the steps and the decisions and the integrations, and then finally we get towards our deployment. So we take our fleshed out process model with its implementations, we go through some runtime construction where we compile it or we prepare it for deployment, and then we deploy it to a runtime environment for execution. So we've gone from a nice high-level vision of what it is that we want to achieve, through further degrees of refinement, through to an implementation, through to a deployment. Well, this is pretty necessary, but in our new world of low-code and no-code desire, what we would like to do is be able to take it from the original inception through to deployment with fewer steps than this, and ideally no technical steps. So what we want to end up with is something that looks more like this. We want to have a notion in mind for what our process looks like or should feel like. We want to be able to model our process, and we want to end up with that deployed and ready to execute. And our story at Salient is that we can achieve that using our Quick Process Builder technology. So we go from our model of what the world wants to be through Quick Process Builder, and we end up with a deployed executable in double quick time. So let me take you through what that might work like. So let's carry on our story and do a demonstration of the Salient Quick Process Builder. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to log in to the process portal, and from process portal we will find that once we have Quick Process Builder installed, we have a new option to create a quick process. So when we launch this, we are now looking at the development wizard for building a new quick process. So in this example, we're going to build a very simple hiring process. So click the OK button, and now we're going to run through a very simple three-step wizard. So in the wizard, first thing we do is we name the new process we're going to create. I'm going to call it hiring. Hit the next button. Now we're at the stage where we want to define the fields of data that will be presented to the user. So we're going to run through this story in a couple of passes, so we'll create it simple right now. And we'll imagine that in my hiring story we have the name of an applicant, we have the name of the hiring manager, the manager, and we have the department that the person is going to work for, the applicant is going to work for. Department, yes, that's what we wanted. So what we've defined, and I want you to remember these three fields, applicant, manager and department, we've defined three fields. Next step of our story is we're going to define our simple process. So in our process we're going to interview the candidate, and then we're going to determine whether or not we want to hire that candidate. So we'll add a step, and we will call this the interview step. Done. And we will create a second step, and we'll call this make offer. This is where we make an offer to the candidate. And we'll just leave it there. Now, it's not a very good process yet, but it is a functional one. Finally, we get to the next step and we click Publish App. Now what this does is this is now publishing the application that we just defined, because that's in fact what we did. We just defined an application in two very simple steps. We defined the data that is going to be shown to the user, and we defined two distinct steps in our process, which were interview the candidate and then make them an offer. Now by clicking the Publish My App, that created a complete BPM process app and published it to BPM ready for execution. So let us now go to Process Portal one more time. Let's bring up a new Process Portal. There we go. And let me log in. Admin and my password. Now let's try that again. Admin and my real password. And now we'll find that we have a new application, the hiring application. That wasn't there a few moments ago. So I launch this, and what that will do is that will create a new work task for us, the interview task. So this was the step in the process that we just defined. I click on interview, and the first time we create a BPM process, it has to build the cascading style sheets. It builds the CSS, so it always takes a few seconds to appear. But notice that we now have a form in front of us with the fields applicant, manager, and department. So maybe I'll fill in some fields, Neil, Eric, XM3, and complete this task. And now this task is being performed, and the next task in our process, which was make an offer, is now presented to us, and we might make an offer to this person. Now this was a ridiculously simple process, but it did show us that we could create a process just in a few clicks without any technical involvement whatsoever. Now let's go back to our data. Let's complete this process and make it richer. So during the interview, we might want to, for example, take some notes about the candidate. And the notes wants to be a text area. So not just a simple text field, but a text area. And then, at the end of the interview, we might want to decide, should we hire this individual? So we'll create a field called Hire, and we'll make that field a checkbox. Good, so we've added a couple of new fields into our story. We go back to our process, and I'm going to add another step. But this time, instead of a human task, this step is going to be a decision. So I click on OK, and this has added a decision step. Now it's not added it in the right place, so I select that decision and I move it up. So now it's there before making an offer. So let's double click this again. Let's change this. We will determine should hire. We'll call this one should hire, and we'll create a rule, and the rule will say that we're going to go to the end of the process if the hire flag is false. And having said this, we now click OK and OK, and very quickly we've created a new process model which says that now we're going to interview, and if the interview flag says should we hire him, we'll go on to make an offer. Otherwise we'll skip that and go to the end of the process. So what we've done here, before I build it and run it, let's talk about it a little bit. We've defined a process just by adding extra steps. Now the steps of the process can be human tasks, they can be decisions, or there's a third type which is called a system step. Now a system step allows us to invoke what is known as a service, and the services we can invoke, we get to define them, or rather our BPM programmers get to define them, and then we can just quote-unquote leverage and use them here within our processes. So adding a service step, for example, allows us to perform technical activities in our process. Very easy. Now let's drill into the make offer step. Now in the make offer, when we're showing a human task, we can describe what the form looks like. We can say these are our form fields, and whether or not they are editable, or whether they are required, read-only, or invisible. So by using this, we can define which fields are going to be in which states. So once we've made our decision, we might want to make some of these fields read-only. Once we've entered the candidate's name, it doesn't really make sense to go back in and edit those. So we'll change these ones to read-only. Also, when we look at these forms, we can go in and we can edit the structure of the form. So we see here these are the individual fields, but I can rearrange these. I can move these around wherever I want to. So I can rearrange them by drag and drop, and I can do all sorts of interesting things such as change their width and change their visibility and all kinds of other good things that I might want to do. In addition, when we've got human tasks here, I might, for example, generate what's called a to-do. And a to-do is the notion that when a task is shown to a user to perform, I can define that I want that some work to be done by the user before the task is completed. So, for example, in this to-do for the make an offer, we might call this send an email to the user, no, not the user, the applicant, and inform the applicant of their interview status. Now, this might be just all that's needed, but we can also associate a to-do with a service link, and we'll send an email in this case. Now, what that means is that when we see a to-do, we can also invoke technical services to assist us. Now, in this instance, what we're going to do is we are going to generate an email and send it to the user. All right. Now, having made these changes, let me go ahead and republish the application. So once again, we hit the publish button. Now notice that I have not left the process designer coach environment. I'm doing all my work within BPM itself. No process designer, no coding, no JavaScript, no coach views, and a very nice, elegant, easy to use description for building processes. Something that we really believe can be achieved by a business user without technical programming. So let's go back to our environment and process designer, and we'll see another hiring element here. Let's go launch the hiring process again. Up comes our interview. We launch the interview, and if all has gone well, we should see new fields being presented for us. Again, it takes a few seconds to come up when we are building our cascading style sheets for the first time. So let's just give it a few seconds until it appears. And now it's appeared, and what we've got is our form with our new fields. So let's go through this again. Let's run this twice. So Neil is an applicant, Eric is the manager, department XM3, and during the interview the boss goes, "This guy is not worth it," and hire will leave no, complete this task, yes, and the process is finished. There is no further step because we decided not to hire him. So let's run it again. Let's bring up the interview step, and after a few seconds the interview step should appear. And there it is. So we will now go on and we will enter some data. XM3, this guy is good, and let's decide to hire him. Click, complete this step, and that will have generated a new step, and this one will make an offer. And when we run this, first thing, notice here's our details, but notice that before we complete this task, if we try and complete it, it's going to tell us you can't because you've got a to-do. And here we've been told we've got to send an email to the applicant. Now I can click this button and up comes a form which was automatically generated for us to enter the details of sending the information to the user. When I click run and it executes that, which it's not going to do because I didn't give it a good email address, but we can click this, complete this step, and now we have completed this to-do for this work item. Now I can complete this task and the process as a whole has completed. Now this is just a taste of what Quick Process Builder can do. The high-level concept that I want to get across here is that we get to define a business process without low-level coding. IT don't have to be involved in it. The nature of the process that we're building is that we're defining a set of fields, and by default all those fields are going to be shown in every form. But we can then choose which fields are going to be shown in which form. We can rearrange them, we can define their visual aspects, and then in the process we can wire together, just by ordering steps, the order of the activities we want to execute. We can associate teams, we can associate decisions, we can associate technical steps. So this has been a brief initial vision, or demonstration rather, of Salient's quick process builder. In subsequent videos I'll go into more depth on each of the individual features, but I encourage you, if you're interested in what you're seeing here, call us. We'll be happy to give you a one-on-one demonstration over the internet or with a visit. We've got brochures, we've got demos. We'll let you download it and install it in your environment. So I hope you like what you're seeing with Quick Process Builder. The core concept is no code in order to build a BPM process without the involvement or complexity of IT interaction. Thanks now. I hope you found this useful. Talk to you soon.